Good morning. It's a great pleasure to be here in Portugal and in Porto. We would like to thank very much to the Porto Academy organization team, especially Rodrigo and Amelia. It's really a great pleasure. We are very pleased to be here and for the generous invitation and hospitality. It's a great honor to be here in that beautiful Cecil School and especially also in that Tabora Hall, because when I was here 25 years ago, I was very impressed about both architects, of course, but especially on Fernando Tavora's work, who broke with the myth of the untouchable, immaculated, white, subliminal architecture and rather encouraged searching for synthesis between modernity and the vernacular. So that interest in historical and contextual roots of architecture is quite also what we are interested in. As you know, we are from Switzerland. It's quite a different country. We have a lot of mountains, we have a lot of snow and fog, and I show only a few images in the beginning as illustration what I'm reading as a theoretical text, because we are sorry our spoken English is not so perfect, so I will first read some points from a theoretical text that we prepared. And after which Andreas will present you some projects, some newer projects of our office. This is only a first impression of our Swissness. We want to start with the houses we grew up in to give you an idea of who we are and where we are coming from. Both of our parents built their own house in the 60s, in the early 60s. This is the house Andreas grew up in Baden, near Zurich. Both of his parents were architects. And I will not go deeper into the issue, but just give you an idea that, of course, architecture does an impact on where you grew up. This is the house I was growing up in Lenzburg, also near Zurich, and it's a very experimental house made by Pierre Zölli, a Zurich and architect who was living 10 years in Philadelphia in America, teaching there. And so the house has really the spirit of the 60s in it, and the whole social things of this time. So the architecture of these houses, which have obviously some parallels, have of course had an impact on us. But Andreas started his studies first with physics, me with art history. We didn't wanted to become architects first because it was such a strong issue already. But then we both changed to the Faculty of Architecture to study architecture at the AFGH. After finishing the studies in architecture, we both had to find our own ways. Only in 1995 we founded our office Furiman Hechler in Zurich and realized that maybe that fusion of our talents could have a potential. We have deliberately remained a small office in order to retain the breathing space for reflection and to be able to query certainties, things that otherwise, unfortunately, often get lost in an architect's daily struggle to survive. However, it is very important to us not to theorize at such a level that one loses all touch with life's everyday realities. but to do the opposite, namely to be in touch with them and to fruitfully integrate the oscillation between theory and practice in our work. The theoretical debate on architecture we enjoy by teaching our students once at the AFGH or at the University of Arts in Berlin, where we teach 3 years. This reflecting process is undoubtedly helped by motivated clients we have who explicitly demand this added value. The fact that the majority of these projects originate with clients who, like ourselves, are at home in the world of art and architecture gives additional impulse to the inquiry. Here you see our really most low-budget house we ever did. It was for artists, and it was really not expensive, but with really luxury, spatial inside. Andreas will show it later. Low-budget projects, which we did realize for artists or for ourselves, we also live in a low-budget house, are very inspiring, but idealism is needed. It is grotesque, but it is the low-budget projects requiring a far more innovative approach in order to create a spatial value that bring in least in fees. The combination of utilization economically efficient structures with haptic, sensuous surfaces ultimately enables the realization of low-budget buildings, but with a high-end spatial opulence. But on the other hand, the projects we realize for privileged clients are very important for our office to survive, making possible these other experimental projects. Therefore, we call this principle the cross-financing and redistribution, the Robin Hood principle, and is one that we very much want to stick to it. This is the inside of that low-budget house. Just two-story space, and so it is not the poor architecture. Actually, it's quite a luxury thing in a spatial way. Another important issue is that we have a closeness to contemporary art. This is the conversion of the Kunsthalle Zurich in collaboration with the conceptual artists Draxet and Elmring, Norway. This was a very nice thinking about the process of building, and the whole process was made slow. The whole reconstruction went 3 months, and so it was declared like an art piece, the whole process. Another one was, for example, is this with the high-end minimal artist Sol Lewitt, a very nice work, very discreet work in a swimming pool where he made a very specific intervention with that color, glossy color on the wall, which makes a fluid feeling. Another one is a conversion we did in Arles in France for an art collector, and you see the tree is from Ugo Rondinone, a quite famous architect, Swiss artist. Just to give you an impression that we only do also reconstructions and like also the approach with historical sites. This is an image of Pippi Lotiris, a good friend of us. We are living together in the same house with her, and she made that picture of our pavilion, which is close to the sea, to the lake in Zurich, and we consider architecture like a stage for life, and it's nice the bodies are doing kind of an architecture. So for us, the life to create a stage for life is very important for us. And if it's adequate, we also use strong colors. We think it's not less intellectual if you use colors. You can. It's not intellectual when it's black and white. So it's interesting to use also colors. So on the other hand, our interest in and familiarity with conceptual art forms is an ideal background to sound out areas of perception and requirement. But it is equally important to address both the limits of art and the limits of architecture in order to counteract against superficial formalism. It is cultural identity which in the last resort is regionally nurtured, which remains decisive and which helps to prevent the global formal leveling. This means that the universal aspects of architecture equally require an overlay of atmospheric feeling that is characterized by the region. The oscillation between theoretical considerations tied to the permanent sharpening of sensory perception via the surroundings and the relaxed attunement to life remains a venturous and highly demanding balancing act that needs to be permanently mastered, and which Dennis Scott Brown, part of the Robert Vennuri, Dennis Scott Brown office, expressed in her aphorism: "The architect who cares not at all for context is a boor. The one who cares only for context is a bore." This expresses the fact that it is not the perfecting of a conceptual program that is at stake, but rather the way of living that takes place within a particular architecture, or the molding of architectural space to focus on sensuous and practical needs, and which therefore explicitly elevates experienced non-perfection and not build dogma to its program. So I think we are there very close also to Álvaro Siza. This is the two living room pictures of in our house in Zurich, where Pipilotti Rist is living, and she's a very good liver. She is really into always changing things, and she's quite a great neighbor to have, because it's not clean, it's not just design, it's really also life. This is what makes everyday matters so crucial, and the process of dealing with them so exciting and varied and never ever boring. The feeling of living in an era that continually strives to change itself often robs of any feeling of easing tranquility. However, we ourselves also consider that it is equally important to have a closeness to life's practicalities. This often injects an ambivalence into our designs and enriches them by opening them up to multiple interpretations, but without them sliding into randomness. We use ornament to generate atmosphere. Having said this, we like to sublimate the ornamental into the three-dimensional, lending the orchestration of the spatial qualities a film-like character, and animating the motions in the room. In our work, we particular emphasis to the three-dimensional architectural space, which is a clear focus. We see space as the most important material which the architect has to work and reflect on. Of course, there is also an influence of Adolf Loh's Raumplan, as you maybe can see. Living rooms constitute the focal point, the center of a domestic house. Vertical exaggerations, niches, galleries, openings, or internal or external views can impart a constantly new and specific spatial choreography to them elevating them to exciting everyday living spaces that are a source of constantly changing inspiration. The light that imparts the specific atmosphere to rooms is of central importance. The inspiration of this design principle comes from the spatial imagination of the Baroque, which is predicated on a multilateral relationship between man and space. The starting point of a composition, wrote Hans Scharoun, German architect and builder of the Berlin Philharmonie, the German architect who may know you as one of the organic architecture, is the inner structure of a building project, the inner correlation of the living mechanisms that are to unfold in the building that is to be planned. A spatial mood is articulated by differentiated room heights and by different spatial proportions, linked to a materialization and color scheme. The aim is to precisely adjust the degree of visual tension in each room and to correlate the individual rooms with each other in the three-dimensional spatial structure. These paradoxical perceptual moments are amplified by the rough concrete, the surface of which narrates the history of the construction process, and by the peeled veneer with its wallpaper-like ornamental character. Essentially, as far as surfaces are concerned, we have never considered the white cube as a something to be uncritically venerated, and owe more of a depth to a pre-modern spatial ideas. Like Fernando Tavora also was, he has the same ideas. Living rooms are not gallery spaces, but the interplay of art and vivid wall surfaces is nevertheless highly attractive in private rooms and increases the atmosphere of comfort. Alvar Aalto's call that without art, our art life becomes mechanical and dies is as relevant as ever, and we have the modest hope that something of his legacy echoes in our work. 6 years ago, we gave our first book the somewhat cryptic title, What Anchors a House in Itself? The enigmatic title, by the way, was inspired by a text in the book of Kurt W. Foster, written for our book, and in fact is a question, namely, what anchors a house in itself without being blind for its surroundings and its users? This blindness for the place and the people who use it is undoubtedly due to the functionalist vision of heroic modernism and the abnormal developments of technical process. What therefore should a house or an apartment achieve in order for it to not simply serve as an abode where everyday activities are undertaken? How does a building design have to be in order to enable an individual life plan, or even to encourage such a life plan and not descend into simply being a place to lodge? In other words, what is architecture? After all, many things are constant in any building. We all build spaces that consist of floors, ceilings, and walls, stairs and openings, which offer protection and enable social living. For this reason, architecture is always a social endeavor. After all, the task at hand is to create a feeling of being cradled in the world, a highly challenging task, and one which is in the best case provides an existential foothold. The thing we are dealing with is the complexity of sensuous simplicity, the task being to create it again and again anew. In this process, the terms nuance and ambivalence play an important role, and which indicate that architecture is not an exact science like mathematics, but has a lot to do with intuition and aesthetic understanding. which in turn have to be nurtured through education and experience. Ms. van der Rohe said once, "The ideal dimensions of space cannot be calculated, space must be felt." A form that is perfect in and for itself only establishes a partial contact of other spaces. The opposite, namely an imperfect form, has an effect upon its surroundings precisely to its non-perfection, perfect spatiality or formality. This is why the close marriage between orthogonality and polygonality is so important to us, because it is more true to nature and creates a better feeling of an organically developed urban architecture. Both the social and the theoretical parameters in which we live are marked by insecurities and ambiguities. Today's growing complexity make the struggles over specific terminology all the more urgent. Dogmatists, be it the Palladians or functionalists, tend to hide behind consequential theories that serve as simplifications with which to evade the pressing need to confront complexity. In our project, we examine quintessentially how the balancing act between apparently irreconcilable extremes can be mastered. On the one hand, this involves deliberately working with the imperfect and the impure, and on the other hand, it involves dispensing with any form of historistic or iconic reductionist strategies. The point is to translate meaning into an abstract, universal language without lapsing in a dull rationalism. So that's how we feel very close to CISA and Tabora, and now Andreas is showing us some projects. Thank you.
I show you first 3 projects in the mountain. Swiss people started normally with small project in the mountain, or this is we did this. It's an older project. We did this in 1995, and it's a 200 years old hut. And a client asked us, "Do you build also and make renovation with old houses?" And we said, "Of course, we want to do that." And it was a really interesting thing that we learned a lot about wood and old techniques to build houses. The house was quite difficult to reach, so everything had to go fast, and was a rich owner, so we did it with a helicopter in the winter. And the poor house was really like a patient in a hospital with heating and all environments that you can build also in the winter. But the interesting thing was really the details we discovered, the old details, all the carpenters used in centuries before, and they are quite modern. Here you can see the house from outside. We designed new windows. It was important for us that the house not looks like a little chalet, that it looks like a farmer house between, where you have cows inside and make cheese and live there. These ramps were before really for the cows to go in. And here you see the ground floor. It has a space here where you have before the cows. Here you make the cheese. And this was to English. Yeah, the storage for the cheese was there. And here they live. Yeah, you can see the old carpet on the walls we keep. This we make new, but this was a detail we saw somewhere. You can open it so that you have only a little bit fresh air when you want, or you can open the whole thing. This was the shower we put in with stones from there. But the special thing are actually the doors. They are is one wooden piece, and how they work, how they fixed in the button and in the ceiling was really special. But it's too difficult now to explain. But something I want to show you is we made this wooden ceiling and wooden floor, and you don't use it today. It actually is not parallel. It's when you see it exactly, perhaps you can see it. It's smaller here and it's wider here, and then it's changing in the other side. So they try to use a lot the most part of a tree, and the tree is and the bottom is thicker, so you have a thicker and the thinner part of these beams, and they changed, and it's like a solid floor, 15 centimeters. Here you can cook, and here is where the fire goes out. Yeah, and when life is coming in. Yeah. With our neighbors, we were there. This is Pipilotti and other artists. Jean-Frédéric Schneider. And this is another famous Swiss artist, Roman Signer, and he's quite famous, and he made this special environment here in the nature. So the next house is also in the Alps, but it's quite near, and it's a really special thing. It's in Gstaad, and for architects in Gstaad it's quite difficult to build, because they have strong regulations, and the regulations are quite stupid. So it's better you make the things underfloor, and the things over the ground, you let them make the people from there. And we did something underfloor, yeah, and up was a chalet. The chalet belongs to Liz Taylor, and she sold to our client, and that we don't touch. So, but in the bottom we did some bigger things. It's really a little James Bond part we did under the floor, but it's normal there in Gstaad. So this is the garage with and we could try things for later possibilities to look how it is working. So also the entrance is on the floor, but it was really important for us that you don't have the feeling that you are under the floor. So this is the view in one direction, the view in the other direction, where you see where the garage is. So you go of course you find a lot of art. This is a Fischli Weiss here. They use it this kind of floor as a little art gallery. So, and you can go up, and this was the things we try, that you don't have the feeling that you are underground. The swimming pool. Yeah, the little steam baths, and yeah. This is the elevator. We was inspired by another artist, Archwager, and yeah, the Prouvé chair is here because the client is also head of the Prouvé Stiftung, Foundation. Yeah. The cinema, you see, you must imagine there's a chalet and everything is, nobody sees, and actually we didn't publish this a lot because they don't like it, the clients. This is the cinema with a little intervention also from Pippi. We did also the furniture and everything here. This is the intervention of Pippi Lottie-Wrist. It's a little video on the etiquette. So here you can also see how the light is coming down. And then the garage was too big, and the client decided that she want to have a disco for the daughter and the son. So we built a disco, also in the garage. I don't know if this really is used, but for us it was, we like it that we could do it. A little bit Star Wars inspiration. So it looks from outside. The funny thing is, nobody can see it. It's underground, and nobody knows actually, but it's existing. So this is our own. Gabi promised to show newer project. Sorry, this is an older project. Perhaps you know these. This is our vacation house we share with friends. It's one of our first works together, and because it's a spectacular situation, it's quite famous now. BBC made a film from the house. Our friends, they live in Zug, and they live in an old apartment house, and they want to have a loft. And we say, come on, a loft in the mountains is not possible. But then we made a compromise, and so we had this one big room, and it reminds a little bit on a loft. And but the upper floor with 4 sleeping rooms, and we try that you have a way that you can go around, and that you can pass different directions. It's a shame we try in other houses too. So you see this feeling. And actually the spectacular views is more spectacular when you make precise windows. Then you have, it's more spectacular actually, really. So this combination, was the same, built in the same time as we built our house in Zurich, where Pippi Lotti is living too. And we had not the time to build really 2 different houses, so you see similarities between them. The whole house is prefabricated and it's also built with the helicopter. In one day they put it up. So make a little slideshow. I have too many projects, so. Okay, next house. This is the house we lived together with Pippilotti-Rist. She was really a perfect client. At that time, she was in Los Angeles, and we had only 3 meetings to build this house. It's a prefabricated house. It's outside, it's not concrete, as some people think. It's galvanized metal. And this is a little art piece from Pippi. And she lives here. We live in the upper floor, and there are 2 other apartments on this side, and here a little atelier. And the idea was 4 apartments compress in one big house. And we have 2 sides of facades. One to the town is the north facade. We had no sun protection, and only of the south facade we have this sun protection, and makes these 2 facades quite different. Here you see the situation. It's on the border of our mountain of the Uetliberg, and it's the wood, the forest starts here. And on the other side is the town. Here you can see this concept of this 4 apartments, and you see the apartments go, they are compressed, you know, like a whole thing. And so our apartment starts here, but goes up to here, Pippi's is here. This we cancelled then at the end, but also this apartment starts down. And the idea is that you, when you are in your apartment, that you have the feeling you are in your own house, not in an apartment. And one of the things that you reached this owned is that every house has its own stair. So you get on the first floor, you get in all apartments, and from there you go in these apartments, and you have to go with 1 stair up, and so you have the feeling you are in your house, not in a flat. Here you see in the middle is a concrete part where for fire reason and earthquake reasons, and the rest is also prefabricated wooden panels, wooden structure. In Switzerland, they built, normally our friends, the other architects at that time, that's 2003, sorry. The house is 2003. At that time, lots of our friends tried to make really perfect concrete, you know, the clean and everything possible. We tried the other way, and we say the guy who make the concrete, that he can do what he want. You can use this material, the big ones, or the big ones, or you can put something inside, or the really old panels. Doesn't matter. Do what you want. And in the 60s and 70s was this brutalism time. They tried, not similar, but in a way a little bit like this. And you have the plasticity of the concrete is stronger when you use it like this. These are the staircases. And in the living part, you see then the wooden part. So the walls and so are prefabricated panels. So you have this difference, this synthesis between these really two materials. And I think it makes this richness and this complexity when you use both. Here you have actually it's the loser side of Zurich. Nobody want to build here at the beginning. As we bought this part, the banks say, oh, we're not sure if we can give you so much money for this side. It was really at that time, it was nobody want to actually go there. It has changed now completely, and as the people from the bank then, when it was finished, was here, and so what kind of view you have, they changed the mind totally, of course. And it has these both sides, the wood in the back and the town in the front. This is the kitchen of Pippi. She actually lives here, and her partner is cooking here, so she can control everything. So you see the concrete. This is defines the thickness of the walls. And normally you don't see that, but it has an ornamentical part. The glass, as a contrast to the roughness of the concrete, was important for us. That the wooden, the warm part, the concrete, the rough part, and here the glossy part where you can touch with the skin without to hurt. So this we already saw. The galvanized steel from near. Actually, the panels are hold on the structure with glue. Today they build airplanes and cars. They glue with glue, not with other possibilities. Yeah, the pavilion you saw. The picture Pipilotti also did is near a famous sculpture of Henry Moore, and 200 or 500 meters away is the famous pavilion of Le Corbusier. So for us it was a challenge to make something own, but was important was strong to be in a park. And the special is the sculptural form and the colors of the glass. And the idea of it's a steel structure. The idea was that we find a form where is changing when you go around. When you have a rectangle cubus and you go around, you know in your mind, in your head, how it will change. But this kind of form, you're not sure how it will look when you are now walking around. And this makes like a filmic or a movie scene that this art of changing. We also try this with the stairs inside and go to the rooms, but here it's outside, and this makes this sculpture impression of this pavilion. So you see it gets longer and it's quite different from each angle. And yeah, this is the special thing of this pavilion. There's the inside. I think it's the most luxury public toilets in Switzerland. Yeah, this is, normally we do little projects. Our office tries to get, to keep small, that we really can do all processes in design and in construction. And it's a decision we did. Sometimes we try also to get a bigger project, and that was the art house in Zurich, but we didn't succeed. It was a competition, only I think 20 people could do that. And I show you because we were a little inspired by Caesar. So but it's different, but yeah, the little inspiration was there. And we tried to do with this walking way up a special room for inside. Yeah, unfortunately, Chipperfield won the competition, and it's a boring project, but yeah, shit happened, yeah. So we stay with the small project. This is a small building. Yeah. It's the concrete variation of the other pavilion we saw before, where is life and hand and party, and this is the other thing is death, and it's quite. The colors are also different, and the colors here protect the people inside. It's like a little bit a monolith who is standing in a cemetery. Was really complicated but I think we have not the time that I can explain. It was really complicated to make this thing perfect for Switzerland, for all regulation, that it is, because it's as an isolation, and so it's not a cold house. It's heated in the inner side, and yeah, it was a really complicated thing that we get there. So you see this influence Gabi told from the Baroque. We had it. We used Baroque themes also in the ground floor, but I think I explained it in another house. And here is where the death is lying, and people can say goodbye. Okay, this is this house in the mountain. For Eva Prisenhuber, she is a famous gallerist. And this house is, the concrete make the isolation themselves. It has bubbles inside and bubble glass, and when you took a piece out, and put it in the water, it swims. And when you go with the hand on this concrete, it feels warm. So this makes the possibility, it isolated not so well. So you have to do it really thick walls, and that was the special thing for us to use that also in the ground floors. This is the traditional ground floor. You have it in these houses there. It's the solea where normally or before you have cows inside or animals. And she used it as a gallery, of course. But here I want to show you these Baroque things. In the Baroque you have often a square and then a round space inside. And then in the edges you have these special rest pieces. And we use it in another way, of course. We try to get space, here a space. It's not round, but it has a special form, and it doesn't matter when you get these thicker parts, where you can work with the space, where you want to really show. So, perhaps you can't see it here, but do you see it then in the upper floor? Two windows are on the outside, so you feel the thickness here, and it gives you the possibility that you can use it as a table. And yeah, here you see that it makes different zones in the bathrooms with the thickness in the wall. But the best thing you can see, actually the exactest intention we had, you can see it in the upper floor with the chimney and the other part of the thing. It makes also a flowing space, and it is working also like the pavilion with a cinematic kind when you are walking around. You see that here. You don't know exactly how it's happened when you go 2-3 steps further. And from outside, it's quite traditional for the Engadine. Okay, this is another house we did in outside. It's to try to make a new farmhouse, but yeah, it's a special situation. Normally, you can't build in Switzerland outside the normal region in the countryside. And here we had the possibility, it was a special reason. And so we try, actually it's a villa looking like a farmhouse. If this is ethically correct, I don't know. But for us was an interesting thing to work with this special situation. And of course you have a lot of regulations, irregularities, and it's quite different from inside and from outside. This is the outside, and with here we try actually to give them modern elements from inside, but it looks from outside also traditional. So now we go to the inside, and you see it's a little bit another world. The clients are collectors of art, and we make, unfortunately, the pictures before the art is inside is working much better with the art then. This is the stair inside. you don't imagine perhaps that both goes together, but it's really the same house. And the special thing is these panels here are plywood, so you have the wooden plywood also in the concrete. So this is a house for another artist. It's Ugo Rondinone, Gabi told you before. This was a really long and complicated process that we found a way with this artist. The artist actually won an arts and crafts house, and we said, okay, I don't know if we can go, if we really kind of do what you want. We were more inspired from the place, from a Japanese house. And so it was a long process, and it's actually at the end a collaboration between Ugo Rondinone and us. Every has his own, but it's its own house. It's not so that you have the feeling it's not working together, but there are really two strong meanings how the house should be, and at the end we have this conclusion. He wanna have he's also living in New York, and he wanna have this fabric windows for, where you have in the lofts and in the old fabric, old buildings. And for us, it looks more, like Japanese windows. And in Switzerland, it's really difficult to do windows like that who are not only fake. These windows are really part and the really little glasses, and was really working like that. So this is one isolated glass, and this is the structure goes really through. So this is the inside, and here you see there's a little bit these arts and crafts coming through, and this is not, of course, not a design from us. This is the art piece of the client, of the artist, and he made these pieces also for a museum. But for us, it was really also interesting to make different. Something different. Normally, when you are living in Switzerland, you have and you started with some houses in the mountains. You get asked, "Can you build me another house in the mountains?" And after the 10th house in the mountains, you're happy you can do one house somewhere else. So we did 2 projects in Greek, and one little part is realized, but the other is only in his project. So it was our Greek project in Antiparos. This little part we already built, and this is still project. And we were a little bit, the regulations were also really hard there. There's another building from Bow Wow, Harry Gucke from Herzog Demod will do some, it's a part of other architects, but it's difficult how to get these regulations there, how to play with them. We try to find a way. Now this we really built with this rough stone and the white cube, but it's has different references. One reference is the traditional house, of course, and another reference is little bit super studio. You know, I know it's far away, but this conclusion of these both things tries to transform this house in a new way. You can't see it very well, but it goes around here, so this is one flowing part. And sound protection is working in a good way, and here we have, you can lie on it. So here you can see this roughness in the stone. I don't know if you have actually, it's a special Greek thing, this white, but it's also inside, it's very rough. This is the other project. This is Pen 4. It's quite some 200 meters from the other project. It's only a project, and with the crisis in Greek, with the Brexit, that didn't happen, but they were scared about to build. So that's the poor thing. We hope we will realize this project. So you can see sometimes we can also make white houses, but we try that it's not only a white cube. This is not built, this is only visualizations. Okay, this is a special AFGH. A special thing we did at the Rothsee, and the special thing is it's in a protected area with nature, and 11 months of the year there is nothing. There is birds, there is quietness, there is some protected flowers and plants, and 1 or 2 months in the year is the Rothsee Regatta. It's the Wimbledon of rowing, and it completely changes the place. And this is the finishing tower where you can see which boat is the first, and you know where you can measure all parts of all boats, how fast they were coming in. And in the top is the TV section, and here is the justice, and here are the 3 judges sitting on chairs, so looking who is the first, the second, and so on. And the special thing is these 2 different worlds to bring together. So it was important for us that in this 11 months, nothing happened, that the quietness, that the house must have a quietness. And when the regatta is, it changes completely to like a butterfly from the state before, and then it gets to a butterfly. Yeah, here we're missing the chairs, but here are these 3 judges. So, and near we built the rowing center, belongs also to this. I go quick through this, time goes, I have too much projects, I see. So this is actually a school also. So, and yeah, I have too many projects. These are 2 houses we built for Jacobs, and it's a newer project, and we can't publish. It's one is published in the wallpaper, but not with our photographer, and the pictures are not so good. There has also inside a wellness part. Yeah, I give you a slideshow through these 2 houses. Then we have one more. We have a lot of buildings. Okay, this was we had our fastest house. From first sketch to finished 1 year. And this was also special regulation, so we built it up, and the beams are, of course they look fancy, but actually they are not not a fancy reason. It's for earthquake, that they get the stability. And this builds triangles to stabilize this house. It's also prefabricated, and the good thing is you can do the build. In that time where you built this part, you built the upper part. So it was possible to get this house in 1 year. Sorry, I have to go so fast. So, no problem. This is wallpaper from Pippi-Lotti-Rist. So I show you this project, but I go fast through. Every architect tried to get, prefabricated house with, and we really were trying to realize that, but we failed like others before. The idea was to prefabricate this in China and to make with the concrete the structure, and you can do this everywhere in the world. It has the measures of containers so that you can transport it, and here you see we try to use not a lot of concrete so that you can use it also in poorer regions. The possibility how to work with complicated situation. Something happened here with the photo, is not correct. Also was planned with different isolation for different climate. Was a big project here, 4 containers put together. And the project gets bigger and bigger. It's for Sao Paulo or another town in Brazil. Yeah, but at the end, it didn't happen. Okay, that I think we lost. This was a reconstruction we did in all, but yeah, I go through. Sorry, too much. Oh, I know I have too many houses, sorry. We go through. Now that it's house, I showed these 2 houses, the House Saxa. This is a villa we did in Zurich. We finished it. Normally we don't make a lot of villas, but here we tried. And for us it's, we don't want to make a house who's only expensive and rich, and so we tried that we found a way that it has the directness and the roughness too. Inside, it was a long process with the client. You can see it's white, but you see the structure of the concrete. And he want to have plaster, of course. And it was a long process that we get it on, that he accepted. And I'm not sure if he really like it, but I hope in 2 years he will really like it. And yeah, the client had lots of books and so, and this is for the books. Yeah. And the roof is plays with the rectangle things in the front. So this is the last one. It's in Aarau. It's how a photographer make it always a little bit heavier as it is in reality. And it's quite new at that time, and the idea is, of course, that you have more green, and that actually this is working in the green. And you see the playing with the here you have always the living room, and it gives every living room has his own view and his own identity. He plays with that. And of course it looks quite rough without the green, but I think in 2-3 years it will have the green, and then it will look different. Here some photos from the inside. So that was it.